Welcome back to TL Talks podcast. I am TL. It's good to see you as always. First and foremost, just for transparency, I want to let you guys know what my plan was for recording now that we're on YouTube and why that didn't work out that way. We can get back on track. So I think we recorded it in September, and now it's obviously December. My plan was to do about one per month, just because I am busier now and I feel like I can handle that. But what happened was I recorded the first one, which is basically just an update on the last year of my life. And then I attempted to do one right after that to keep my once per month schedule going. But the guests that I reached out to schedule for interviews did not work out for one reason or another. My buddy Chris, that works for the Browns, he had just had a baby, which he is my guest for this episode. His name's Chris Cola. So we're going to hear all about that. Then there's also a co-host of another. She actually has a Browns podcast, and I invited her on, and I didn't hear back. So I know it's kind of a crappy excuse, but I wanted to talk football, specifically Browns, and so that's why I wasn't as flexible about who to have on as my next guest. So we're doing one for December, obviously, and the plan is going forward to do one every month and get back on track, and so hopefully I can follow through with that. We'll start off with the thought of the day, like I usually do. My thought of the day for today has to do with priorities. So what I've learned in my old age is that whatever your priorities are, your actions will follow suit. So no matter what your priorities are, your priority could be to be a really good basketball player. Your priority could be to be a gang member. Your priority could be to do drugs. Whatever that is, even if it's a shitty priority, your actions are going to reflect that. And so what I've learned is that my priorities are what they are, and my actions reflect that. So however that looks for me, could be good or bad. And at the end of the day, you just have to own it. And if your priorities aren't in line to where they should be, then your actions probably in your life isn't probably where it should be either. And so the sooner you can realize that your priorities are what they are currently, that doesn't mean they need to stay that way. You can change them. Once you realize that, then you can take steps towards getting those in order and getting your priorities straight and living your best life. That's my thought of the day. Hopefully you took something away from that. The 2 months since I've seen you guys, I have been a guest on another podcast called Great Iron Beauties. Shout out to Oscar Lopez. He is the host of that podcast. He does an amazing job of covering women's football worldwide. I talk about women's football, here in the U.S., but he has it covered overseas. I mean, he has a really good pulse on the sport, and so I don't know how he does that comprehensive coverage, but he does a great job at it. So huge shout out to him. I've been a guest on his podcast about a handful of times. I'm actually taking a break right now, probably until January or February, which gives me time to talk to you guys again through my podcast. But yeah, huge shout out to them. Awesome podcast, great content, and hopefully talk to them soon. Nextly, briefly, we're going to talk about Ohio State. As I said, Chris works for the Cleveland Browns, so we're going to talk about the Browns tons in my interview. But Ohio State is my other favorite team, and unfortunately, they recently lost the team up north in our annual grudge match called The Game. So not much to say about it. They outplayed us. Actually, it makes me feel better, which is kind of weird. I take solace in the fact that they beat us, and it wasn't fluky. It wasn't because of the refs. It wasn't, you know what I mean? They just played better. You could say they coached better or their players played better. It was there, which helps. And they did get some calls, but I don't think it was enough calls to where it feels like we got robbed. You know what I mean? And so that I actually prefer that. I prefer if you just beat me fair and square, then kudos to you. One thing I want to mention before I move on to um, what if I was president? That's a new segment that I have. Is so I'm an Ohio State fan, right? I'm a bigger Browns fan, but I am an Ohio State fan, and I watch Ohio State games. I keep up with them. I root for them. So especially in that grudge match against the team up north, I make sure that I watch that game live. I went out of my way to go to an Ohio State bar here in Denver and had a good time. Well, we didn't win, which hasn't happened in 9 years. So I don't drink, but I go to sports bars because I like to be around other people that are a fan of the same team. I noticed when I was at the bar, of course, people are drinking and act, people that are drinking act different ways. Um, but when my team lost, I saw some Michigan fans in the bar, and I said, well, there's one of two ways I can handle this. I can either ignore them or kind of give them an attitude because I'm salty that my team lost, or I could be the bigger person, go out of my way to shake their hand, congratulate them on the win, and go about my day. So I did the second one. I patted the guy on the shoulder on my way out, shook his hand, said congrats. And then as I was walking back past the same bar to my vehicle, there's two Michigan fans outside, and I shook their hands too and said congratulations. So I guess I'm not preaching to anybody. Of course, you can live however you want to live, but um, at the end of the day, it's a sport that we're watching on TV. None of us can control the outcome, and so it's fine to be a fan and to root for your team and to feel passionate about that. But when the game's over, the game's over, and so that it's not really necessary to be classless or talk crap or you know what I mean. I just say there's a way to win and a way to lose, and so I tried to be how you should lose with class when we lost the big game. Moving on to my new segment called "What." How do I word it? What would I do if I was president? Something like that. So there's a lot of things I would do if I was president of the United States. This is a new segment, so I'll be giving you one per episode. But one of them occurred to me about a week or two ago, and it's pretty freaking simple. Um, Countries that like don't even try to they don't even try to treat their people right as far as human rights and stuff, like China. Countries like that, and there's more than just China, of course. Um, if we know that for a fact, not just rumors, we know for a fact that they're doing messed up stuff to their people and violating their human rights. How about we don't spend any money in China? So you got to think, China makes all this stuff, right? And we buy it and we have it imported and it's probably cheap and whatever. It's all about money. So we're helping your economy by buying stuff that you made in China. Meanwhile, you aren't being decent human beings to your own citizens. No. How about no? Just no. That sounds better to me. So yeah, that's what I would do. If I was president, I would just form a committee of people that literally their only job was to go out and like fact check and figure out who are the real villains of the world from a country standpoint, who are the people that are the worst people out there as far as what they're doing to their own citizens, make a list of it, and then cut those people off. If we are buying any of their products, anything coming from their country, it's done today. If they want to start a war over it, okay, we have more bombs than you probably. It's not going to end well for you, but I mean, you just have there's a principle thing, right? There's a principle of you have to do business with people that are worth doing business with. So if right now America's stance is we want products because all of our Americans are just greedy little consumers, and we'll get those products from whoever is convenient / cost effective. Convenient makes sense. Cost effective doesn't make sense if it's morally incorrect. So I don't mean to rant, but That's what I would do if I was president. One of the first things I would do. I would form that committee. I would figure out who is outside of the circle of trust, and they're getting no more dollars from us. None. It makes no sense. If there's another country like China that wants to take us out eventually, God forbid, we're giving them money to afford whatever they're trying to cook up in labs or nukes or come on, man. This isn't rocket science. You know what I mean? All right, moving on. Last podcast talked about COVID and that whole, how that's been in the last year and stuff, and how, my opinion on it and stuff like that. Shout out to my friend Michelle. She actually works in the medical field, and she reached out to me and gave me feedback on something that I said. So what I was saying was, with COVID, um, they're pushing the vaccine, right? They say get the vaccine. Now there's boosters, and originally, I just thought common sense. You take the vaccine, you can't get COVID, right? That makes sense. That's why you get the vaccine. Well, turns out not so much. Turns out if you have the vaccine, not only can you get COVID, but you can spread COVID too. So my 2 cents was, what the hell is the purpose? What is the purpose of getting a vaccine that doesn't prevent you from getting COVID or spreading COVID? So Michelle's response was that she's being told in the medical field that if you have the vaccine, if you get COVID, the symptoms or how it affects you or could kill you or what all that bad stuff, those go way down. So they're saying that the vaccine will cause your symptoms and what could happen to you from a health perspective to go way down in a good way if you're vaccinated. That's what she's being told. Well, I got news for you. I don't buy it. Sorry, Michelle. I just don't. I don't buy it. So I don't judge anybody that's vaccinated. I thought about getting vaccinated myself. I don't think it's something that should divide people. Unfortunately, it does. But yeah, I think it's everybody's own choice. I think that they rushed out with the vaccine because they could make money. I think it makes me uneasy not knowing what the long-term risks are. And the fact that it doesn't prevent me from getting COVID or spreading COVID is not as a good selling point for me to do that. And so I don't have any plans to get vaccinated, and it is what it is. But I just wanted to kind of give you a follow-up from what she said and kind of what my response is. And so, like I said, there's no judgment. I'm not a person that judges people for if they're Republican, Democrat, their walk of life, their religion. You know what I mean? Like, we're all different. We all make different decisions. We all have different upbringings. It's all good. For me, it's about communication, education, and at the end of the day, making your own decision for yourself. So that's where I'm at with it. That's my 2 cents on the COVID update. 2 things before I get into the interview. So I also mentioned that I kind of wanted to do a little bit of comedy in my podcast. And so some things in life just happen that are funny. And I mean, maybe they're not as funny to you as they are to me, but pretty funny. And so I just wanted to share one with you for this episode. You guys can let me know if you enjoy it. So here's the scenario. You're in a drive-through. You're driving in a drive-through. And like most of them have 2 lanes and there's a speaker and you pull up and tell them what you want and then pull forward. Well, what happens oftentimes in my neck of the woods is I might be in a busy drive-through and there will be a person in front of me and they will be like, I'm waiting for them to order, right, so I can pull up. They'll order and then they'll pull forward. It sounds good so far, right? For the most part. They'll pull forward just far enough that I can get close to the speaker without actually pulling up to the speaker. Now, why do they not pull too 2 to 4 feet further up so I have enough room to make my order? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Eh. Do you know how much it irritates me that they don't have any self awareness? That, hey, somebody behind me is trying to do what I just did, order freaking food. So let me pull up as far as I can to give them room to get to the speaker. Do you know how stupid you feel when you're in your car and you hear the person, the speaker's up here. You're not at the speaker yet. It's right here. You hear the person at the speaker. Oh, sorry, I'm not there yet. I would love to do my order, but the person in front of me is an imbecile. So I'll see you in a minute whenever they decide to move. Sounds good. I mean, come on. Come on. So that's what I have. Drive through, first world problem, make me want to pull my hair out. You understand? All right. Last but not least, before I get into the interview, is real estate. So I told you guys I got into a new career in real estate. I got good news for you. Next year looks like it's going to be a really good year for business and real estate. This year, not so much. I haven't made a lot of money in real estate yet. More of just like learning, learning the ropes and stuff and learning my job. But here's the good news. I have never been happier. So think about that. I haven't made much money. Never been happier. So I think that's a sign that I'm on the right track. Call me crazy. But yeah, real estate's awesome. Just the flexibility, right? Like a lot of people go to work at a certain time, get off at a certain time. It's all very structured. Having the flexibility of not being to work at a certain time and kind of making your own hours and working as much or as little as you want to or need to is priceless. And so I am incredibly happy, even though I haven't made a lot of money. And that's awesome. Life is good. So without further ado, we're going to get into the interview. As I said, my interview is with none other than Mr. Chris Cola, that works for the Cleveland Browns. He is a college teammate of mine. We went to Heidelberg College, played football together, and it was great to talk to him. We talk about, he just had a baby, talk about that for about the first half, and then we go into Browns, of course. So without further ado, here is Chris Cola. I'd like to welcome Chris Cola back to the TLTALKZ podcast. Believe it or not, Chris, it's been about a year, a little bit over a year. You were the last guest I had before I took a long layoff, and then unfortunately, you're my first guest on the way back. Now that I have it on YouTube, so it's good to have you back. And you just had a human baby recently, and so I want to talk to you about that first. But how have you been?
I've been great. I'm glad you're picking things back up again. I think podcasts are always fun. I did one for a while, and then we stopped, and we haven't done it in a long time. But I always enjoyed it. I enjoy being a guest on yours, and I'm glad you picked it back up again. But, I'm doing good. Yes, I did have a human baby. I think that's funny how you put that. I know you have a dog baby, am I correct?
Yeah, he's my best friend. Yep.
Yeah, so we have a dog and a cat, but we had our first human baby back in September 4th. Our son Christian was born, so my life's been very different since then. It's actually been very different since Vicky got pregnant back in January. But it's all been good. It's all been great stuff. Little hidden fact here. We found out that Nikki was pregnant on the day the Browns beat the Steelers to make it to the playoffs. So it was an overall great day.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's an easy one to remember.
Yes. I remember talking to all my other buddies from Heidelberg, and they were like, what if we lose? What if we miss out? What if we don't make the playoffs? And all I texted was, either way, it's going to be a great day. And they were probably like, what the heck is Chris talking about?
Yeah.
The Browns lose. It would be such a failure because we wouldn't have made the playoffs. It would have been rough. But no, it all turned out well. So
yeah. You're like, what's wrong with this guy?
Yeah. Yeah. So before we get into your new life as the father of a human baby, what you just mentioned about podcasts is a really good point because I've become a huge fan of podcasts. I kind of stumbled upon them a few years ago. Joe Rogan's podcast has been kind of a big part of my life, and I've learned a lot throughout the years, just listening to him, being entertained, whether it's laughing or educating myself. And so, I'm a huge fan of podcasts in general. As far as my podcast goes, I've enjoyed doing it. I love having guests on like yourself, and kind of picking people's brains and having good discussions and stuff, and kind of just using it to learn from people. But it's funny you said that because I took the long layoff. COVID happened, and then I got busy with switching careers to real estate. Right. I always intended on picking it back up. I wanted to do kind of a better version of what I was doing before, which is just the audio version. And so now I've switched on to YouTube, which has been fine. But it's funny because I recorded my first YouTube video about maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and my idea was to do one podcast per month because my life had become busier in real estate and stuff like that, so I didn't want to overcommit myself. So about once per month sounds like something I could pull off. Well, this isn't a guilt trip, but when I recorded the first one, I could have had dozens of different guests on, but at the time the Browns were just about to start playing, and I'm obsessed with football, I'm obsessed with the NFL, right? So I was just like rearing to go as far as the NFL season, the Browns specifically. Just we've had the conversation in the past, about projecting the record and kind of just seeing our thoughts about it before it all starts. Right. So I kind of reached out to you first. You were my go-to, and then you were a little bit too busy with Christian at the time, which is no fault of yours. And then the backup plan was this female podcaster. She is one of the co-hosts for this podcast called, I think it's called Here We Go Brownies. Okay. And I reached out to them to see if she would come on, and they kind of just didn't get back to me, kind of flaked on me. Gotcha. And I was like, man, it sucks because I could just, schedule somebody else, whether it's somebody that doesn't have to do with football or somebody that's not a Browns fan. But, that was really kind of my heart's desire. And so what I did with it is waited it out. And so here we are 2 months later. Here we are, And it kind of worked out, man, because if I had talked to you 2 months ago, it would have been right before we started. We would have had the good conversation about how our team looks preseason and kind of what we see for how the season's going to go. But right now is a really crucial time for the team as this interesting season has, kind of played out. And so it's like a midway thing where we can kind of talk about where we're at, how the season has went, how we can finish things up realistically. And so, it could be much worse as far as, content for sure. But yeah, before we get into all things Browns, tell me about your experience as a new father, because I as you know, I don't have any human kids, just my fur baby. Yeah, I love very much. But before you tell me about all the good and bad, and whatever you're willing to share, how much I love my dog Jackson. I didn't even know it was possible to love an animal that much. Yeah. And so I would venture to say that loving a child that you made yourself is somewhere above that. So I don't know if it's times 10 or times 100. I'm not sure how to quantify that. Right. Yeah. But that hasn't happened for me. So all I have is experience of my dog. I love him dearly, and if anything ever happened to him, I'd be devastated. But how is that whole thing been? I want to hear as much detail as you give me. As far as her pregnancy and the delivery, everything from day one, stuff that was rough, stuff you had to get used to. So I'm just super curious about it. Yep. Yeah, so like I mentioned before, we found out Nikki was pregnant on January 1st. Me and Nikki had January 1st of 2021. Me and Nikki have been married since May of 2014. And our plan was always to have kids. There was no, we weren't waiting at all. We were going to let things happen and, hopefully have kids, hopefully quick. But that didn't work out that way. So God had a different plan, and it took us a lot longer. And things didn't actually come. We didn't actually even seek any professional help until 2020. And it wasn't really like, hey, we need help, because we can't physically, we aren't physically able to do it. We got help to see if there was something wrong with either one of us. Because it had been 6 years and we had nothing. So we went and saw some specialists and stuff and found out that both of us were perfectly able to have kids. It just for some reason hadn't happened yet. So we just continued trying and got some tips about some certain things, and there's a lot of fine details as far as how things go, and things just happened to work out for us. So we found out on January 1st that Nikki was pregnant. She had a really good pregnancy. She only really got sick a little bit in the beginning. Some morning sickness, maybe 3 or 4 times total. So not that much. She always felt pretty good. All of her appointments always went well. The baby was always really healthy. Seeing one of the coolest things ever. The whole process is just unbelievable, especially if you have always wanted kids. Yeah. Just going through all that. There's so much technology and they just know so much about it. And they can show you so much detail that it really is incredible. From the first time you hear your child's heartbeat, to when you can actually see his face and his fingers. And they'll show you everything. They'll show you their skeletal system, the blood flow. They can show you fingers, toes, and his nose, all sorts of stuff. It's really amazing what technology can do. So that was just an overall great experience. Getting to tell family and friends was a great thing, especially our parents, because Christian is the first grandchild for my parents and Nikki's parents. So it was, even an even bigger thing. Yeah. So and I have 3 brothers, and none of them, obviously none of them have kids. Unlike my extended family, there's 2. My one cousin, they have 2 daughters, but they live in North Carolina. So there's really no grandchildren in the area. So it was a big. So pregnancy went well up until probably the last couple of weeks. Nikki actually started to get carpal tunnel, which I didn't know you could get from being pregnant. But towards the end, you start to swell, and when you start to swell, obviously there's a lot less blood flow. So she started to get a decent amount of pain in her hands. They were always kind of always numb, and she couldn't really do anything about it. So that was kind of annoying, but that was probably the worst thing that she really dealt with. And then she was actually due on September 11th, which, was obviously a very memorable day in a bad way. So we, if the baby was born on September 11th, that would have been fine. We were hoping he wouldn't be. And lucky enough, he wasn't. So Nikki actually had a doctor's appointment the week before. She went into the doctors. They found out, or they said her blood pressure was super high. Mm-hmm. So they said, hey, we think you should really go to the hospital where you're having the baby and just get checked out. So she called me. I was at work. We got our stuff. We had our bags packed. One of the million different things that you have to do to prepare for a child. But yeah, that's a big one. So we had our bags packed just in case. We went there. They kept checking her blood pressure. They said, yeah, your blood pressure keeps going higher and higher. And they were like, hey, by chance, have you been feeling any contractions? And she said, no, I feel fine. And they said, well, you're actually having contractions like every 3 minutes. So she was well on her way to having a baby, but we had no idea. Like, she couldn't feel the contractions. I didn't know that was possible. Yeah. Yeah. I was just that tough or what? I guess. I mean, that's a whole other story, man. If you one day are married and you get to have kids, to see a woman go through childbirth, like, you grow a whole new respect for them, because it is an unbelievable event, and they go through like a beating to have a baby. And Nikki handled it like a champ. So yeah, but yeah, you watch any like TV show, and like whenever they have contractions, they're like in like the worst pain ever, apparently, on a TV show. So I thought it was impossible for you not to feel it, but I guess that's normal. Yeah. So yeah, this was Friday, September 3rd at 10 a.m. We're at the hospital. They said, she was having contractions, her blood pressure was going up. They said, hey, you're going to have a baby either today or tomorrow. So like now we're super excited. We're calling everybody. We're also a little nervous. It wasn't anything that we had planned for it to come early, or, we weren't like mentally prepared yet. But yeah, we were there Friday, 10 a.m. and, they said, hey, you're going to have your baby today. So we were all excited. And then like nothing happened. They began to do like these exams to see how far along she is, to see how dilated she is. She was like 1.5 centimeters, and they want you to be like 10 centimeters dilated, so she wasn't anywhere close. Mm-hmm. So then they started giving her medication to speed that up. Hours went by and nothing happened. They ended up purposely breaking her water at 4 a.m. Saturday, because that's supposed to speed things up. Once again, it did not. So literally we went all the way till 4 p.m. on Saturday, right? So we had already been there for, a complete day, maybe about a day and a half. Yeah. With really no progress. And then at about 4 p.m., she was pretty much fully dilated. So they were like, hey, we're gonna have this baby. You're gonna start pushing. So like now we're super amped up. I'm texting everybody, thinking we're gonna have a baby in like a half hour. But once again, that's not exactly how it works. And he did not come for 6 more hours. Yeah. Yeah. So she pushed for, 4 hours without any luck. And then they were like, okay, well, the baby's super close. We've been pushing for a while. Why don't we try to pull him out? Which, when they say pull him out, you would think, hey, they kind of put their hands in there, grab his head, and pull him out. Yeah. That's not how it goes. They actually use forceps, which are giant metal tongs. So it's kind of freaky. Yeah. So they tried pulling him out twice, unsuccessfully. And then they said, hey, it's you have to have a C-section. Like, we can't get him to come out. Mm-hmm. So they decided to have not an emergency C-section, but it definitely wasn't planned. We definitely didn't have it in our minds. But at this point, we had, she had been pushing for 4 hours. She was exhausted. This was, the right way to go. So they rush her off into the operating room. They tell me to pack up all my stuff because we're not coming back to the room. Then they come back and get me. I go to the operating room, and I basically sit there by Nikki. Luckily, we can't see anything. I probably didn't see anything. So I probably would have passed out or something crazy like that between me. Yeah. So, yeah, we're just basically sitting there. We can't see anything, but we can hear everything the doctors are saying. And then at one point, we can hear them and they say, hey, the baby is out. And then we hear them say, the baby's not breathing. So now we're freaking out. And they say the baby needs oxygen. So we're literally just sitting there in like silence, like pretty much crying because we have no idea what's going on. But seemed like, a half hour, which probably wasn't even that long. It was maybe only like 30 seconds to a minute or maybe 2 minutes or whatever. Then we heard the baby crying. And someone came over and said, hey, he's okay. He wasn't getting oxygen, but now he's fine. And then I went over to see the baby, took a bunch of pictures, brought Kristen back over to Nikki. At that point, the doctor came over and told us that like it was basically physically impossible for Nikki to have the baby naturally, just because of the way that her body is. But that was a whole crazy thing to find out. The things that they know, you think they would be able to figure that out or like see that somehow. Beforehand. Yeah, beforehand. It would have cost us a lot less stress.
For sure.
So that's basically the story of the birth and everything. He was perfectly healthy. There were no issues besides just, he had a hard time coming out. Once they got him out through the C-section and got him breathing, he was perfectly fine. We've done our full round of doctor visits, and everything's pretty much checked out well. And just every day has been really great. It's definitely a completely new experience. Everything that I've done before is, thrown to the back burner. Because you just don't have time. And literally, like, a day off, you think, like, okay, well, I have the day off, Nikki's home. We can kind of split time taking care of the baby. Like, the whole day goes by, and, like, you literally, like, practically get nothing accomplished. Because you're constantly attending to, the baby, making sure he eats, making sure he sleeps, changing his diaper, crying, is he, whatever. But yeah, those first couple weeks are a blur, pretty much. A lack of sleep for sure, just because he would wake up so often. But then once you get past the first couple weeks, and honestly, I think we're extremely blessed and lucky, because Christian he's very well behaved. He sleeps well. He eats well. He's pretty much sleeping through the night for the most part, if not waking up like once. So yeah, we're super lucky with that. And just every day is, better than the last, because he's getting more observant of things. He's starting to be able to really like interact with us. He's smiling at us. He's giggling. We can really like kind of like throw raspberries back and forth to him, where like, you stick out your tongue and make noises, and he'll do the exact same thing. So yeah, it's really, really beginning, to be a lot of fun. Not that it wasn't fun before, but, when he's super young at first, he just kind of sits there. So now that he's beginning to do stuff, like it's so much more fun, because you're literally like teaching him like all this stuff. So, so far it's been unbelievable. It's crazy because you're like, this is going to be awesome. Like literally, I'm going to have a kid. Like me and my wife created this kid. You're going to love him so much, and it's like, it's like a million times more than that. And literally, go ahead.
That's what I assume. Like, you're like, oh, this is going to be awesome. We're going to raise this kid together. We both made him. He's going to look like us. We're going to teach him, about life. And then you're expecting to love the crap out of him, and you end up loving him way more than that. You're like, whoa. Right.
Which is insane. And literally, like everything he does, is like funny, or like you like I don't know, you like enjoy it for some reason. Like him going to the bathroom, you know what I mean? Like him having to change his diaper is like fun. Like that shouldn't be fun. Like that's gross. But he's just so cool, and like he's already like just, everything he does is hilarious, and like you just love every second of it. So
you guys are big fans.
So far I think we're gonna keep. Not 100% sure, but I think we're gonna keep him. So.
Yeah, for sure. So I have a few questions based on what you told me so far. One thing that came to mind when you were telling me about it was, for me, well, the first two things before I forget. The first thing, and the only reason I'm saying this is because you had your son, so there's like, if it hadn't worked out, then I wouldn't be saying this, you know what I mean? Or if you're about to have a son, then I wouldn't be saying this, but it all worked out in the end, I can speak freely. Yeah. So, like, just the process of having a child, and then your wife's pregnant, she's due on a certain date, and all this stuff you just talked about, like all the details. Yeah. It sounds like it's like the awesomest thing and the scariest thing at the same time. Oh yeah. Because it's like I can't imagine, dude. Like first of all, I've never had a kid, so I've never even went through the process of being with a woman that's pregnant. Having the baby 9 months later, but like having that anticipation, right, of being a father. And this kid coming out, and obviously you find out if it's a boy or girl sometime in the process. Yeah, all that anticipation, and then people have miscarriages, right? Yeah, where the baby doesn't make it. Like I can't even fathom, like it's like the emotional toll of that. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, absolutely. So like thank God that didn't happen to you guys, but like it's just this like crazy thing where everything probably will work out, and you're gonna have a kid, and it's gonna be awesome. But it's also like this delicate situation, right? Like, sure, absolutely. All these things could happen that aren't great, or don't go as planned, right? And that would like stress me out. Like I'm a pretty laid back guy, but it was to touch on that a little bit. So let me see if I can remember this. Once you get to like, there's a lot of check marks along the way as far as weeks of Nikki being pregnant, and you reach certain stages where it gets less and less nerve-wracking because like I think once you get past a certain stage, like the chances of a miscarriage go like way down. Okay, way down. But still, Nikki's older, not that much older, but she's 36. When you think about women having babies, the prime time is really like in like your 20s. What I mean? The fact that she's in her 30s, more her mid 30s, she gets a lot more attention because a lot more things can go wrong. So just that whole idea, even before we got pregnant, like that had to be in our minds. Like, hey, there's a chance. We have a higher chance of things not being good. That's just the way it works out. It's higher risk because she's older. Yeah, higher risk because she's older. Yeah. So those are all things that we had to factor in. We as a couple are people that don't believe in abortion, no matter what the circumstance is. So that was something we had to, really talk about and go over. If there was something physically wrong with the baby, if he had Down syndrome or something like that, that wasn't going to change our minds. We weren't going to, we were still going to have the baby no matter what. Yeah. So, but still, that's still a very nerve-wracking thing. Every doctor's appointment we went to, waiting to hear the heartbeat, all the tests to make sure everything was going well. Every single one of them was nerve-wracking as crap. And then the closer you get to her due date, the more you start to think like, hey, am I going to be able to do this? You know what I mean? Like, am I going to be able to be, a good father? Am I going to be able to, I had never really been around babies growing up. I had my brothers, but like, I think my two younger brothers, one's 4 years younger than me and the other one's 5. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I was really old enough to ever like really take care of them or even remember that. So like I had never changed a diaper before. I had never really fed a baby with a bottle or any of that stuff. So you get a very small baby exposure. Yeah, I was a rookie for sure. And you talk to people who have kids and they're like, oh, you'll figure it out, you'll be fine. It's like, well, yeah, that's easy for you to say. You're already there, you've already done it. You've already done it. Yeah, you could breathe easy now. And literally, it was one of those things where like,
it's like baptism by fire. You get thrown into it, and like you have to figure it out. Like there's, you know what I mean? And by I don't know, probably by I don't know, the first week you're like a pro. Like I could probably change a diaper in my sleep, at that point. And you just get used to, feeding your baby and taking care of them and handling them. And, it really does, at least for me, it came naturally, I would say. It helped out that Nikki was like a baby pro, just from her two brothers are a lot younger than her. And she worked in the daycare and stuff. So like, she definitely helped. Like, well, if you get that going for you, you don't ease the situation.
So, right. Yeah, take some pressure off a little bit.
Yeah, I was like Aaron Rodgers coming in with Brett Favre. I was very raw, but I had an experienced mentor.
Full of potential though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But everything was definitely nerve wracking, and still even now it is. I feel like sometimes the doctors don't tell you enough, and we experienced that like in the hospital when she was she was in labor, and we experienced that and like way before that, like certain questions you would ask, and like for some reason they don't, on certain things they don't try to like give you a whole lot of detail, which seems kind of weird. Like I don't know if it's the whole thing about getting sued or whatever, but they won't really like give you like their full like opinion of stuff. They kind of like play the fence. But I don't know. I'm sure there's a reason for it. But
yeah, I mean that's probably doctor speech. Just like there's coach speech.
Right.
Like with them being vague on purpose.
Yeah.
And kind of keeping their own opinions out of it. You know what I mean? Trying to stick to the medical facts.
Because I'm sure it's happened before where a doctor's been like, okay, yeah, this is what I use, this is what I do. And then someone takes their word for it, something goes wrong, and it's like, well, this is what the doctor told me to do. So,
yeah,
I'm sure they got to cover their butts, but
for sure.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, man. I appreciate you being forthcoming about all that because, like I said, I'm completely clueless. I mean, I've had very little exposure to babies, just like you.
Yeah.
And so I would be in a similar situation as far as, the mental process of all that. But interesting how you described it because, I with most things in life, whether it's a new job or whatever's going on that's new in your life, I found that like about 2 weeks later, you feel like you got it, right?
Yeah.
Like within reason. Like if you have a new job, on your first day you feel super overwhelmed. It's way too much information. You'd feel like they're make a mistake, and then 2 weeks later you're like, oh, what was I worried about? Like, it's fine. I just needed to learn my stuff, and I'm good.
Yeah.
I feel like it is, but it's not applicable to a baby because with a baby, after you first have it, you're going to get used to certain things right away.
Sure.
But obviously with a human child, they're going to like continue to grow, to continue to go through different stages of their life,
right.
From being a baby and then an infant and then, a young adult. So in those different stages, obviously there's different behaviors that happen. And so obviously like that's just an ongoing thing. And so it's like 18 years of this education, which is like one of the most serious things you could really do. Kind of passing on your genes, like raising a child the right way, to be like a good member of society is like one of the most serious things you could ever do with your life.
Right.
So, it's pretty intense, but
absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. I try to think what else I wanted to ask you about. So I want to touch on the scary part of it because, like you said, things can go wrong. Her pregnancy didn't go exactly according to plan.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't breathing at first. I mean, all that stuff to scare the crap out of me. And then obviously everything did work out, even though it was stressful. So, with that being said, from what you've told me, I think the only thing I was going to ask you before we get into football was the whole, like, he was born in September, right?
Yeah. September. Yep.
Yeah, so he's a couple months old now. And he said, like, dude, I hate to do this because I know people that are listening to this are going to cringe. Yeah. But it's really hard for me not to compare it to my relationship with my dog because I'm so obsessed with my dog, right? Like, everything he does is cute to me. You know what I mean? Like, everything's funny. I adore him. Like, I have a folder on Facebook of his pictures. Yeah. But it's overboard. So then with a kid, but just like I said, it's just like you got to times that by whatever it is, 10, 100, 1,000. Yeah. So now everything cracks you up and everything like brings you joy. Yeah. And that's just a crazy thing to think about. Oh yeah, I just remembered the last thing I was going to ask you about. So for me, man, I always just assumed that I would probably get married and have kids one day. Yeah. Right? Most people do. Most people do get married and have at least one kid. And so I just assumed that eventually would be the case for me. And one thing for me was I was really adamant that if I ever do become a dad, that I would be really good at it. Like, I would make sure that I was a good father. You know, based on what I've seen in my life, I've seen, you know, bad fathers and good fathers. I want to make sure that I was not a bad father. Right. So I had seen other people make mistakes, and I wasn't going to make those mistakes. So that was a really big priority of mine. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so that's kind of like what I always just assumed would happen eventually. Well, my question for you is, you know, now that I'm getting older, I'm 40 years old now. The older that I get, the more I kind of have to come, you know, face to face with the reality that maybe that's not in the cards for me. You know what I mean? Right. Maybe I'm just not going to have a kid of my own, and that's just the way that life worked out for me. Yeah. So my question for you is, you guys wanted to have a kid fairly quickly after you got married. Yeah. It didn't happen for a long time. Right. About 6 years. Yeah. So obviously persistence was key for you guys. But during that process, how hard was it for you to not kind of just like throw up the white flag? You know what I mean? Because years is a long time.
Sure. Yeah, I think it was definitely like. It was definitely a lot harder on Nikki, on my wife, you know, because all of her friends were having kids, her cousins were having kids, you know, all of our friends out here were having kids, and, you know, it seemed like we were trying, nothing. So every month that went by when we started doing pregnancy tests, you know, it just, every negative one that we got back was just such a bummer. You know, because there were times when, like, hey, like, something feels different, you know what I mean? Like, it almost seems like, you know,
you can feel a difference.
Yeah. And then, you know, we do the pregnancy test and you know, no go. So every single one was deflating in its own way. And, you know, we were kind of getting to a point, like, I guess for those first couple of years, because we were just kind of, like, trying but not trying. It wasn't as bad, or at least I didn't realize it as much. But it was really taking a toll on Nikki for sure. And then, you know, when we started going to the doctor and, you know, we found out everything was okay with us physically, like, that was definitely a huge relief, knowing that it was still possible. But then, like, as more time went by and we still weren't able to get pregnant, then you're just kind of wondering, like, okay, well, we're able to do it. We're physically able.
Yeah.
It's just not happening. So, like, is this just not going to be a part of our life? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, we're not going to be able to have kids of our own.
Yeah.
So then, obviously, we talked about adoption, and we didn't seriously talk about it, but, like, if we got to a point where we weren't able to have our own kids, then that would definitely be the route that we would have taken. And who knows, that still might be, you know, in our cards. You know, we're not really sure where things will go. It's, you know, it's all kind of, it's God's plan, and wherever He wants to lead us is where we'll go. You know, but yeah, that was definitely, you know, a serious conversation of, you know, is this something we're willing to do? And really, also, like, how far would we be willing to go as far as, having science help us, because there's so many different routes you can go, having a kid. So, yeah, luckily we didn't really have to go down that path too much, and, we were able to, have the baby on our own, and here we are, 3 months in, so far, so good.
Yeah. I was thinking about that, man. It's like, for me, it's hard not to apply it to myself, because I always thought that I was going to have a kid, and I haven't.
Right.
But then you get to a certain point in your life where you realize that might not be in the cards for you, and how that'll look for you. If that's a big deal to you, if it's a big priority,
right.
You feel like you wouldn't have a fulfilled life without having a kid, or especially a kid of your own. Some people could care less if it's their own kid. You know what I mean? They could adopt a couple kids and they'd be just as happy. I think there's something to be said for a man's desire to have his own kid.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds really selfish. But it kind of is what it is, man. I don't think I would really care if it's a boy or girl. Obviously, there's the typical things you think about with having your own son. Since we were boys, and so we could obviously relate to a young boy. But I don't think I really care if it's boy or girl, but just that thing of having your own child, there's something to be said for that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
From a male perspective. So, just interesting, man. But I'm super happy for you guys. I saw it.
Thank you. Thanks,
on social media. For what it's worth, Chris, I had no doubt in my mind that you'd be an amazing dad.
Oh, thanks, dude.
Yeah. So I mean that, and
I appreciate it.
From what I can tell about Nikki, she's overqualified. Chris is in good hands, so all is well. But I guess we'll move on to football. I like how the interview, we went 50-50 with Baby and Browns talk. So I know a lot about the Browns. I don't know a lot about Baby, so I appreciate you humoring me.
Hey, I've learned an awful lot in 11 months here, so a lot of info out there, and if you have to learn about it, there's plenty out there to learn. So
for sure, man. So our Cleveland Browns, as you know, we have an unimpressive record of 6-6 right now. I made a Facebook post today actually about the path to the playoffs for us. And I mean, I don't know, man. I of course, I'm going to be called a homer. But I really don't think I'm being delusional here as far as how I see these last games going. Of course, anybody could beat us on any given Sunday. We also could beat anybody on any given Sunday. But just the way I see it playing out, I really feel like 10-7 is realistic. And even though we have kind of pissed away a few games, or maybe even a handful of games, it's kind of encouraging that we even have a shot. You know what I mean? Because the old Browns would have been out of playoff contention a few weeks ago.
Easily.
So let me hear about what you think of the season so far. Obviously, a lot to cover as far as being 6-6, finding ways to lose. To teams like the Chiefs and Chargers and Steelers and Ravens. Baker's obviously always a hot topic in his health. OBJ getting shipped out. OBJ's father and Kareem Hunt's father saying things publicly. So go ahead and word on this. I want to hear it all.
All right. Obviously there was a lot of hype coming into this year. Everything that happened last year was just incredible. Just how they brought it all together. They made it to the playoffs, kicked the crap out of the Steelers, which, you couldn't have picked a better team to rock. And then losing, to the Chiefs in a close game and maybe a little controversial with, the Sorensen hit and, all that kind of stuff. And then you go into the off season where you have a good draft, you sign some free agents on defense, you're bringing back your entire offense, had the coach of the year, same coaching staff. I mean, really, there were 0 negatives and so many positives over the off season. So, like, there was great. yeah. I mean, there were so many reasons for us to just have an awesome year and realistically be a Super Bowl contender. Like, anybody who at the beginning of the year didn't think we had a chance would just be lying. You know, they would just be hating on the Browns to not give us a chance.
Which does happen.
Right. Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. And then, you know, you start off against the Chiefs, the defending AFC champions, you know, won the Super Bowl, you know, 2 years prior. And you think, hey, this is a real test to see where we're at. And, man, they came out on fire. I think they scored on their first 3 drives. Was it like maybe 24-10 at halftime or something like that? And then second half went kind of flat. Had an opportunity to win at the end and just didn't get it done. So kind of a deflating first loss, but at the same time, like a lot of positives. Baker looked great. The offense looked great. I think we knew the defense would need a little bit of work, a little bit of time to gel. There still were some concerning things. And then we played a couple crappy teams after that. We had the Texans and the Bears. I can't remember who our third or fourth opponent was. But we ended up, 3-1, I think. And then we lost to the Chargers in a freaking shootout again. Scored a ton of points. I think we became the first team ever to score 42 points and lose or something crazy like that. And then after that, like, the wheels kind of fell off. It was and I guess you kind of have to rewind a little bit back to when Baker got hurt. Did he get hurt week 2? Is that when he got hurt?
I think, well, he's had several injuries, but yeah, I think the first one was pretty.
That was the first one, though, where he hurt his shoulder.
Yep.
He threw an interception, was pissed off, tried to make a tackle, hurt his shoulder. Which just,
Baker being Baker.
Yep. Right. Yeah. So that's when it kind of, you know, he got hurt then. And I think, you know, he didn't play too well the rest of that game. And I think maybe the Bears game he didn't play very well. But then he comes back to life against the Chargers, right? Looks really good. Offense is running on all cylinders. But, of course, the defense gives up 40-some points and we lose. And then, we played Arizona, right? That's what happened.
Yeah, we got whooped by them.
We got whooped by Arizona, and Baker got hurt again. This time, same shoulder. I think that's when he got the fracture. When he fractured his shoulder or whatever.
Yeah, J.J. Watt hit him.
Yeah.
Through and he like crumbled.
Yeah.
He missed his first game of his career after that.
Right. So he fractures his shoulder. You know, they get steamrolled by the Cardinals. Mm-hmm. And that's when it, like, the Baker chat like started. I mean, it was kind of starting a little bit, even in that Texans game and the Bears, because he just wasn't the same. He didn't look as good as he did week 1. And then even the Chargers game, he plays really well, but they have a chance to win it at the end, and he can't get it done. Yeah. So you're starting to hear that chatter again. Like, is he good enough? And honestly, people were driving me nuts. I was ready to, like, punch people, you know, through the phone.
Me and you too. Me and you both.
Because, I don't know, I feel like for some reason it's like, hey, if we do really well, it's because he has a good offensive line. It's because we have a good running game. If we suck, it's Baker. Baker's and it's just like
completely closed-minded way to look at it.
Yeah. And
it's not accurate.
Right. And, you know, you're starting to hear, like, okay, so then, right, he got hurt against Arizona. He sits out, the Denver game? The Denver?
Yep. Yeah, Thursday Denver game. We got Case Keenum.
Yeah. And Case Keenum plays, and all people were saying was, like, this is what we need. Case Keenum's going to lead the offense. He's so much better than Baker right now. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, you're giving Case Keenum, no offense to Case Keenum, he's been he's had a decent career. We'll say that.
He's a solid backup.
He had, one good year in Minnesota?
Yeah.
and that was what, 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And people are saying like are trying to give him all the credit in the world because of that.
Yeah.
And I was just getting super annoyed.
I'm not alone, Chris.
Yeah. I mean, it was to a point where, like, I didn't even want to, like, I couldn't even talk sports with some of the people that I was talking to Browns with
because you knew where it was going to go.
Yeah, the negativity was just way too much for me.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, it's only gotten worse. Then we had the whole OBJ thing. I'll be honest, like, I'm sure I was happy when we got him, but I never really wanted him on the team. Just because, like, I don't feel like anything's ever really changed with him. He's always been that diva wide receiver. He's always, you know, cared more about himself than the team. Good athlete. But just, like, I don't know. I remember before we even got him, there were talks about, you know, him and maybe even Antonio Brown. I was like, I don't want either one of them. I really don't. Just because of, you know, just the kind of people they appeared to be. It just didn't seem to fit into what I wanted. You know, as far as my idea of a good quality football player and a good quality football team. But we got him, and I was somewhat excited because there was a lot of possibility there, a lot of potential.
Yeah.
That just never made its way.
Yeah.
And all last year, you know, after he got hurt, you know, I kept saying, their offense is better without him. Like, it just seems like they play better without him. And you would get the same people, oh, you're crazy. How could they be better without OBJ? He's such a good wide receiver, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. And I was like, I can't explain it. It doesn't make sense on paper. But you watch them play, they play better without him. Like, I think it was just, with him being out there, it was that whole idea, at least last year, where we had to get him the ball. And I don't feel like that's like Baker's game. I feel like Baker's, spread the ball out kind of guy. He doesn't have, you know, a go-to receiver because he can, you know, he looks for the open guy and he kind of runs the offense.
Yeah.
Odell, it just didn't work out that way. There was too much pressure to either get him the ball or we were drawing plays up to make sure he got it. And then at the same time, you know, you'd hit him, you know, it'd be 3rd and 7 and you'd hit him on a slant, you know, right at 8 yards and he'd drop it. And it's like, okay, like, here's a guy making $15 million a year that can't catch a clutch pass. Like, yeah. So I don't know. There's a lot of frustration there. So when it came out with the stuff that his dad said, at first I didn't really care. I was kind of like, okay, whatever. Like, you know, this is just what his dad said. I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Yeah.
I doubted even like Baker cared because I thought they had a better relationship. And, you know, obviously it ballooned into way more than that. His dad said that stuff after a Sunday game that I think Monday they told him not to come to practice, or maybe it was by Wednesday. I can't even remember at this point. But,
yeah,
you know, it went real quick, and then all of a sudden, you know, it was like, hey, the Browns are for sure releasing him, and, you know, that was it. He was gone. So,
the end of it, yeah.
Then what else? Yeah, Baker was still banged up. Chubb was out for a little bit. Kareem was out for a little bit. Lost that game to the Steelers, which, gosh, they're just trash, too.
Yeah.
Nuts. And that was what? That was after we got rid of Odell, we kicked the crap out of Cincinnati, which, like, just blew my mind. Like, okay, where is this? Like, all right, well, we're going to be fine. OBJ's gone. The distraction's gone. We're going to be fine. Kick the crap out of Cincinnati, and then they lose to Pittsburgh, and a game that they definitely should have won. And then we beat the Lions, and then we lost like that against the Lions, and then we lost to the Ravens. So it's been a little bit of a roller coaster for sure. A lot of games we should have played better, but our offense is just really inconsistent right now. Baker's definitely still hurt, or at least he was hurt. which kind of prevented him from doing a lot of things. He's not comfortable in the pocket. He's afraid, I think, of getting hurt again. So I think that's why his throws are kind of being forced or kind of sailing on him. He's not really setting his feet. He doesn't trust his offensive line at the moment. And I really don't think the coaching staff's really helping him out at all. I think against Pittsburgh and against Baltimore, for some reason, we were afraid to run the football, which that's be our strength. We kind of let our fear of how good their defense is prevent us from doing what we do best. Like, it just kind of drives me nuts. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I don't know. We're coming off of a bye. We're playing Baltimore again. There's no reason we should have lost to them the week before. So I really don't think there's any reason why we should lose them this time. But who knows? It's a different week. Hopefully our offense gets figured out. And hopefully they run the football. And hopefully Baker's healthy. So.
Yeah. Everything you just talked about, like kind of a summary of the season so far, pretty much agree with everything you've said, which is nice. It feels good to agree and be on the same page. The only thing that I would say that I don't completely agree with is the Odell thing. And the reason I don't agree with the Odell thing is because, some things are obvious, right? It's obvious that he came here on paper. It looked like it was awesome acquisition. It looked like him and Baker could do a lot of damage in the league for years to come. But for whatever reason, that didn't work out.
Right.
Well, I had your exact same opinion of Odell before he came to the Browns. When he was in New York, he used to throw temper tantrums on the sideline, and everything was about him. And he was kind of like a diva receiver. I was just like, he's obviously fun to watch. He's a good player. He's a crazy athlete.
Right.
But as far as bringing him onto my team and having the chance of him being a cancer on my team or cause drama or friction, no thanks. Right? So, as fate would have it, he didn't get traded to the Browns. And I didn't know what to expect. But I have to say, Chris, the years that Odell was here, I was very impressed with how he handled himself. His time with the Browns was not ideal. As far as his touches, him getting injured, targets, just pretty much everything. I mean, bad passes from Baker. The game in Minnesota was atrocious. Like, I don't even know how Baker physically, was able to have that bad of a game. I didn't think that was possible.
Right.
But literally missing Odell on, wide open wheel routes for touchdowns. So, my point is there's a lot of times where Odell could have lost it. And been a complete cancer, caused problems on the sideline, caused problems in the media, demanded trades, et cetera. And I think the reason he didn't do that is because he was happy in Cleveland and he loved playing with his best friend, Jarvis. And he really wanted it to work out. So I would say that's my only counterpoint is that I was incredibly impressed with Odell and how he handled himself. And the letter he wrote to Cleveland fans on his way out when he got traded when he went to the Rams pretty much sums it up. You know what I mean? It was like he thinks we're some of the best fans in the world, which we are. He wanted to help us become a winning team and win a title. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, obviously. But for what it's worth, there's nothing but love coming from him. And so there's no hard feelings, and it is what it is. So that's the only thing that I would add as a counterpoint to what you said. One of the questions I wanted to ask you was, my buddy Ray, one of my best friends, Ray, he's a big Browns fan as well. We talk about the Browns on a weekly basis. And he made a point to me the other day. He said that Odell's dad came out with that video on YouTube about all the times that Baker had missed Odell when he was open. And then, like you said, Odell was asked to not go to practice, and then within a week he's gone. So, in Ray's opinion, that was the Browns organization basically making an example out of Odell So this is what's going to happen if you want to have like foolishness. You know what I mean? Like if you want to have, if your dad's going to post on social media and there's going to be all this strife, you're not going to come out and have any apology or, you know what I mean? Like there's just nothing. Like your dad did what he did, whether or not Odell told him to do that, you know what I mean? Or he co-signed on it, who knows?
Yeah.
But the point is that he didn't react to it,
Yep.
you know, in any way.
Sure.
So Ray's opinion is that if Odell didn't do that, it kind of forced the Browns' hand. This guy needs to go. So
Yeah.
he's not happy here. He wants
Yeah.
to play somewhere else. He wants to get the ball more. And he wanted it to work out with Baker, but it's not working out with Baker. And now it is becoming a distraction.
Yeah.
So, you have to kind of cut your losses.
Right.
So then, now the difference is, a similar thing happened with Kareem Hunt right after that.
Yeah.
His dad came out with some kind of public statement.
Yeah.
And the difference is Kareem Hunt was interviewed recently after that happened. And
Yeah.
he, blatantly said, I have Baker's back, period. Like,
Yeah.
he's my guy. He's our quarterback. I believe in him. He's a competitor. That's my guy.
Yeah.
So the difference is one guy felt the need. I mean, granted, maybe they didn't interview Odell, so who knows what he would have said hypothetically.
Yeah.
But Kareem made a point to say publicly that he has Baker's back, and Odell didn't. Odell is gone, and Kareem should be with us for years. So what would you say to that? Would you agree that is the case? Or, you know what I'm saying? Do you think that the Browns were trying to make it an example of Odell, or do you think, how do you view that whole situation?
So, first I'm going to go back a little bit and just talk a little bit about kind of what you said about your opinion with Odell.
Okay, go ahead.
Kind of disagreeing with kind of what I said.
Yeah.
So I'll agree. I think Odell, I think he acted definitely more mature when he was in Cleveland.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of the things that he did in New York, he wasn't doing anymore, which I think's good. When he had a bad game, he wasn't causing a scene. He wasn't throwing guys under the bus. But I still think there was a lot of stuff that was unseen. And obviously, I would say I probably have an advantage of that because I worked for the team. So I saw some things that most people wouldn't see. And I think the issue really was, I think Odell still thinks he's the greatest wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like, those guys should.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is he thinks he's the best wide receiver and he thinks he should be treated like the best wide receiver. And he almost thinks he should have like special treatment.
Yeah, like entitlement.
Yeah, like entitlement. And there's a lot of stuff that him and even Jarvis got away with, and a couple of the guys got away with when like Freddie Kitchens was there. And I think they kind of nipped that they definitely nipped it in the butt when Kessler came in and Andrew Berry, and they kind of cut down on those things. But there were still things that I saw, and not just from Odell, but just things that kind of stood out to me where it was like, this doesn't seem like a team player approach, in my opinion. And like it kind of always bothered me, when he wasn't showing up to the mini camps and stuff. Like when he made it a point, like, hey, I'm only coming in, when training camp starts, when I have to be there. Yeah, kind of doing his own training elsewhere. And people were saying, it's Odell Beckham Jr. Like, he's a star, and like him and Baker can figure it out in training camp, and like,
but they didn't.
Yeah. And to me, I was like in my opinion, you have to be there. You have to be getting reps together. It's just so important. You know what I mean? Especially with all these talks about going to the Super Bowl and stuff. I felt like there just should have been more effort put forth.
You can't replace those reps, really.
You can't. Like, there's something about it. Like, there's something about, guys like Tom Brady and Drew Brees, And these guys who are more than just like Pro Bowlers, you know what I mean? Guys who are Hall of Famers, who are legendary guys, breaking all-time records. Like, they're out there, like, even when they're hurt, doing rep after rep after rep after rep when nobody's there. You know what I mean? They're putting forth all that extra time.
Yeah.
I just don't feel like I saw that. Like, I don't feel like I saw him going above and beyond to really make it work in Cleveland. And I'm not saying that's all his fault. To be honest, like, I don't know if he really ever wanted to come here. I really don't. I think the only plus to him coming here was that Jarvis was here.
Yeah.
I think that was what really sold him. I think if Jarvis wasn't here, I don't think he would have. And it's not that he didn't think the Browns were good or he didn't think Baker was good. But I think it had a lot to do with Cleveland itself. Cleveland isn't New York. Cleveland isn't L.A. You know, he's a big city guy, in my opinion. And that's where he thrives. So I don't think Cleveland was really a desirable location for him. And then even after he left, after we got rid of him, stories came out that he had been demanding, that he had requested a trade even before the season. So I don't know how true that was, but I heard those stories. So if you've got a guy who's requesting a trade already, you know, in the off season, you know, after you know, were hurt for most of last year or whatever, like, to me, like, if you're requesting a trade for any reason, that's a negative thing. You know what I mean? Like, you obviously don't feel like you want to be here.
You're not all in.
Right. Yeah, you're not all in. So I think he had requested trades, whether the Browns tried to trade him or, you know, were like, hey, we have you, we're going to make this work, whatever it was. I think this final thing with his dad was like the final nail in the coffin. You know what I mean? I feel like there was just, the season wasn't going well. He's starting to cause issues off the field with your quarterback. And I think it was just like, hey, we can't let this get any worse. And we got to try and save this season for where we're at. I really think that's where them getting rid of him at that point kind of came from. And it goes to what you said. Like, he could have easily came out and refuted the whole thing and said, hey, this was my dad. Like, I had nothing to do with this. And he didn't even have to do it in the public. Mm-hmm. He could have called Baker and he could have called Stefanski and taken care of it. But I don't think he did. As far as the Kareem Hunt thing, the one thing that I heard that was definitely different about Kareem and his dad and Odell and his dad is apparently Kareem Hunt and his father really aren't close. Yeah, not really, like, I don't even know. I don't know if they don't talk or whatever, but it's not like Odell and his dad, where like Odell's dad's at the games all the time, and you know, is really a big part in his life. I don't think Kareem Hunt's dad is really a part in his life, so that was definitely more believable. As like, hey, this is just some guy like speaking on his own. You know, as more of like a fan instead of other things. So,
gotcha.
And then, Kareem came out and defended him, you know, Baker, so, you know, that kind of changes things.
Cancels it out. Yeah, so that's the luxury of interviewing you, Chris, because since you work for the team, you obviously have more insight than Joe Schmo like me and Ray on the couch.
Sure.
So I appreciate that. I guess the only thing that I would ask you is, don't you kind of take with a grain of salt when you hear rumors, or not really?
Yep.
You do?
What'd you say? Sorry, one more time.
Do you, like, when you hear rumors about somebody saying they want to be traded, do you take that with a grain of salt because it is a rumor, or how do you decipher, like, what stuff to actually pay attention to?
I mean, I guess I kind of go by who the source is. You know, I kind of go by how often you hear that rumor. Repeated. Yeah, repeated. You know, usually if it's not anything real big, you hear of it once, not from Joe Schmo or whatever, and it never really entails and turns into anything. if you hear it from bigger sources, it becomes a common topic. Then you kind of find a little more validity in it. So, and it's hard to say. Like, that very well could have been a false report. But I just can't see the Browns all of a sudden being like, okay, his dad posted a video. All right, we're getting rid of him. You know what I mean? Because, like, it's not, I definitely still think he has some talent. I don't think he'll ever be anywhere close to what he was.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that's long gone. And I feel like unless he buys into that and understands, like, that part of his life and his, athletic ability and those types of numbers are gone, and kind of buy more into the team effort, I don't know, if he'll ever really work anywhere. But I don't know. So
that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're 6-6. We've lost a handful of games, 4 games to be exact, by a small margin. I feel like those were 4 self-inflicted losses. Yeah, the Chiefs game, we lost by like 4 or 5 points. Our punter fumbled the ball. Nick Chubb fumbled the ball.
I forgot about that.
I did not. I was actually at that game.
Nice.
Yeah, our game-winning drive, Baker was getting sacked from behind, tried to throw the ball away, and it was picked off. A whole bunch of unfortunate things. We ended up losing to the Steelers by about 4 or 5 points as well. That's the game where we had our boy Jarvis Landry. Just not catching the damn ball. I mean, he got stripped by Joe Schobert, lost a fumble, dropped a 4th down pass, dropped another pass. I mean, he just didn't play well. And he's a really good player, so that's not usually the case. But in a very important situation, he didn't help us out. Specifically, he didn't help Baker out. And then, the Ravens game, we lost by 4 or 5 points as well. We picked off Lamar 4 times and still somehow lost the game. Baker had the silly fumble on the screen that was wide open. Just unfortunate. And then, there's drop passes all over the place. Joseph had a couple drop passes. Felton had a drop pass on a third down on the sideline. I mean, almost everybody that played receiver or tight end dropped the ball. So you have all these scenarios where Baker is kind of playing good enough to win, and we're not winning, whether it's our defense can't get a stop or his teammates aren't helping him out. And then sometimes it's coaching. So, like you said, one of my biggest pet peeves about football and, people's opinions is that people like to point the finger at one thing when it very rarely is one thing.
Right.
And but people love to blame the quarterback and or coach. And so for us, that's, Baker and Stefanski. And almost always it's a, cumulative effort, and there's multiple reasons why we lost. And it just kills you, man. Like when you lose to the Chiefs like that, that's heart-wrenching. When you lose to the Steelers, who are god-awful. I mean, the Steelers have an all-pro running back and a quarterback that can't throw the ball over 10 yards. How do you lose that game? You know what I mean? You pick off Lamar 4 times. 3 of those interceptions were insane. The defense just balls out. And I mean, he played horrible the whole game. He makes a few plays athletically where he avoids sacks and plays backyard football and throws the ball down the field. And that's enough to beat us. I mean, it's a testament to how pathetic our offense has been at times. And so you have the Chiefs game, the Steelers game, the Ravens game, and then obviously the Chargers game, which 47-42, an offensive juggernaut both ways. Both defenses didn't do much. The one play that sticks out to me in that one was there was a referee call. I think it was like a pass interference. It was so egregious. It was just like, holy crap, dude. And so it's just like, this is nothing new, but it just blows my mind, Chris, that you have this $1 billion organization, and they don't care if they get calls right. Like literally, if they mess up a call and lost the Browns a win, the most you're going to get out of them is like Bleacher Report saying, "Hey, we missed that call."
Yeah.
Oh, well, thanks. That doesn't mean nothing at all. Like
that actually makes it worse. That makes it worse.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we missed that.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you admitted that you messed up.
Yeah.
You still lost. It still goes down as a loss. Like it solves nothing. It just makes you madder.
Yeah.
So
it actually makes it worse because, like, I know exactly what you're talking about. It should have been offensive pass interference on them. It was like their second last drive that they scored on or something like that.
Yeah, he pulled it into him.
Yeah, and they called it on us. They gave them the first down, and then they score on that drive.
Yeah, that's there.
We lose the game. We complain about it, and then I'm pretty sure the refs came out. A story came out. Oh yeah, we missed that call. Our bad.
Yeah,
and the refs were pissed because we called them out. So then when we played Arizona the following week, they were calling everything on us. There was a drive where I don't know if it was their second scoring drive, and they called like 6 or 7 penalties on us, and they literally helped Arizona go all the way down the field and score. You know, that may not have mattered since we got our teeth kicked in.
Yeah.
But it definitely
wonder though, right?
It definitely doesn't help when, you know, the refs are against you too. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny because you have all that stuff, and you hear people on the radio, sports talk radio, and they're like, penalties happen for everybody, and they're not against the Browns, and yada yada yada. And it's like, I'm not saying they're against the Browns, but like, there's obviously awful calls all throughout the league that they should try and fix for the integrity of the game. Like, come on. But
how is it not reviewable? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How is the PI call against the Chargers not reviewable? When you watch the replay, it's obvious that he pulled him into him, and it was offensive PI, if PI at all.
Right.
Instead, it was like a 3rd and long or something ridiculous where they convert that 3rd and long and end up scoring on that drive. And they end up winning the game by 5 points. So it's like, if you care about, like you said, the integrity of the game, you care about the right team winning, the team that played better, and you don't want the refs to decide the game, then, I mean, I know you don't want to review more stuff because it's going to slow the game down, but for me, it's worth it. For me, it's going to if it means getting the game right and the right team winning, that is by far worth it.
Right.
But also, the Terry Lister in Colorado, so nobody really cares what I think. But I guess it is what it is. But yeah, man, I guess the last thing I want to cover with you is just the remaining schedule. I put on Facebook, I think we can almost win out. I don't think we'll beat the Packers because they're one of the best teams in the NFC, and they've won a lot of games this year without a lot of players, which is really impressive.
Yeah.
And so I think they're just playing better football than us right now. Doesn't mean that we can't beat them. We definitely can beat them. We can beat anybody. But I'm not going to assume that we're going to beat them. But the rest of our games, I really don't think I'm being a homer by saying we could win out the rest.
Right.
So do you agree with that, or do you think it's kind of just a wait-and-see thing?
So I definitely think talent-wise, you know, offensive, defensive, special teams, coaching, whatever, like, I think right now we're better than we're better than Baltimore, we're better than the Steelers, we're better than Cincinnati, we're better than the Raiders. Like, I just feel like we are. We're not playing better than them, but I feel like we have better talent than them. We have a better overall team, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The Packers is definitely the one that I think they're you know, better on paper, and you know, they have Aaron Rodgers. Like, you can't really compete with that. You know, unless you play lights out, and we just haven't played lights out. We've played so inconsistent.
Yep.
You know, so I definitely think we can beat 4 out of those 5 teams. But I just don't know if we can. Like, I just don't know if the damage has already been done. Is Baker too hurt? Can they not protect him? And in my opinion, are we going to coach ourselves out of a game?
Yeah.
Because it's possible.
Yeah.
Just they've done it a few times with failing to run the football. You know what I mean? Like, you literally have one of the best most explosive running backs in the entire NFL. You have him on your roster. And for him to only get 8 touches in a game is stupid.
Yeah.
It's literally ridiculous. you have a backup running back who, if he got starting reps, would probably be a top 5, top 10 guy.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't give him the ball either. You know what I mean? So, like, and you're talking about a game that we, what did we lose to Baltimore? 13-10?
Yeah, 14-10.
14-10? Mm-hmm. And 2 of your best players, basically the key to your offense, you only give them the ball 15 times. And then maybe it was 13-10. Maybe I'm thinking of the Patriots score. No, I think it was 14-10 because I think we needed a touchdown. Or maybe it was 16-10. We definitely needed a touchdown.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Okay. Yeah. All I know is we only scored 10.
Yeah, we definitely scored 10.
Yeah, we definitely had 10. And then, like, you know, your quarterback's kind of banged up. He's not throwing the ball well. But yet you still throw the ball 30 times. Like, that doesn't make sense. That'd be like, hey, Nick Chubb has a pulled hamstring, but we don't have any other running backs, so we're going to put him back there and we're going to give him the ball 45 times. Yeah. He can't run, but we're going to give him the ball anyways. Like, I don't know. And I feel like it's not even like, hey, if they went out and tried, if they ran it 30 times and we still lost and, you know, we had 30 carries for 72 yards, like, I'd be like, hey, like, you know, they just played better. Their defense played better. We couldn't run the football. You know, it is what it is. But to not even really try just kind of blows my mind.
Yeah, they kind of abandoned the run pretty early.
Yeah, and they've done that. I feel like Stefanski has done that a lot over his first 2 years. And Baker's just not that guy right now. He's not that guy who can carry you, you know, and throw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. He just isn't that guy right now.
Yeah.
His strength is when we run the football, when we run play action, when we roll him out of the pocket. That's when he does stuff. Yeah, that's when he plays really well. But if you sit him back there 5 wide, and he's got to, you know, throw the ball, you know, with him being hurt right now, it's just not he can't consistently do that at a high level. He just can't.
Did you hear that Marlon Humphrey's out for the season?
I did. That's great. I love it.
So I feel like the Ravens are so injured that it's to the point where it's going to be debilitating for them. So I think you're more confident about the Browns beating them because it's the next game. So if we don't win the next game, the season's over anyways.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said for sure. And I also agree with we definitely could win 4 of the last 5 games, but doesn't even necessarily will. You know what I mean?
Right.
We found ways to lose games we shouldn't.
Yeah.
4 times this season. So
yeah,
there's nothing to say that won't happen again. Stefanski said that the players are feeling like very recharged from the bye week.
I hope so.
So it sounds like we could come out and play good football, but with the Browns, it's all TBD. So
yeah,
nothing for certain. But
yeah, I mean, health is definitely a big issue. You know what I mean? If you're banged up, yeah, it's not easy to perform at the highest level. So yeah, if these guys got their legs back and they feel a little rejuvenated from being away for a little bit, I mean, that's what happened last year, right? They had the bye week and things changed and they flipped around.
Yeah.
Their offense caught fire and they, you know, the defense played well enough. Now it seems like the defense is playing really well. We need the offense to catch up. So
yeah. So would you say you feel hopeful or you feel like tentative about how the rest of the team is going to go?
If I was a betting man,
yeah,
I would not bet on the Browns making the playoffs, unfortunately.
Do you think 10-7 gets them in?
I think 10-7 would get them in, but I don't. I think we can win 4 out of the next 5, but I just don't think we will. I would bet we will we'll go like 3-2, and we just won't. Unfortunately, yeah. There's going to be one of those games against, one of those 4 other teams where we're just going to come out flat, and for some reason we just don't win. It might even be next week where against Lamar, where he does some stupid crap and spins around and chucks it into the air, and somehow Mark Andrews, jumps over our and does a backflip into the end zone, something stupid like that, which seems to happen every week or whenever we play them. Where it's like that shouldn't even happen, and it doesn't happen to other teams, but for some reason it happens to the Browns. Unfortunately, I haven't seen enough to really feel hopeful, unfortunately.
Well, one thing I appreciate about you, Chris, is you are a Browns fan and you do work for the Browns, but you remain logical, and that's not easy to do because being a fan, fan is short for fanatic, and you're a pretty rational, reasonable Browns fan, and so I appreciate that about you because it's easy for me to get hard eyes about what I think about the Browns. Yeah, it's kind of hard for me to remove my own emotions from it. You know what I mean? No, I feel you. Well, we will see, man. Yeah. It's late there on the East Coast, so I'll let you go. It's always a pleasure. I appreciate you telling us about the baby. Yeah, I appreciate you asking. That part was educational for me, but tell Nikki I said hello. I will do that. I'll talk to you soon. All right, sounds good, man. I'll see you, Chris. All right, take care, Jerry. See ya.
And there you have it. Chris Cola, Cleveland Browns employee, and somewhat of an expert. Hope you guys enjoyed that. It was good to talk to you guys. After I do my podcast, I feel alive, which is why I probably should keep on doing it. But I will talk to you guys hopefully in January. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Love you guys.